Thank you, Andrea, for that powerful reminder that financial empowerment begins with knowledge and that change starts with reclaiming what we were never taught. Now, let's expand our view of well-being even further. Our next speaker believes that the most effective form of self-care isn't individual, it's collective. With over 2 decades of experience in public health, leadership, and community advocacy, his work challenges us to rethink independence and recognize the power of compassion and connection. Today, he will invite us to recognize that it truly means to care for ourselves and for each other. Please welcome Will Rucker.
The year was 2025. She screamed, and my entire world is reordered. My chest was tight, my heart was racing. The oxygen left the room. It felt like the oxygen left the planet. In that moment, my entire world changed. Because in that moment, she took her first breath. And I realized that everything I thought about self-care was wrong. My instinct was, give her my breath. Do everything I can to take care of what had become the center of my universe. And in that moment, I realized that while I couldn't breathe for her, I was responsible for everything that supported her breath. And that what I had been teaching about self-care was wrong. We've all heard the oxygen mask rule. Ladies and gentlemen, if in the case of the cabin pressure, losing pressure, something's gonna fall from the ceiling and you put the mask on first. All right, you've heard that. Poorly imitation, I get it. And we've all heard that. We've probably all said it. Put your own oxygen mask on first. That's the mantra of self-care. But then I think about this more deeply. That mask had to be designed. It had to be installed. It had to be maintained. That flight attendant I poorly imitated had to be trained to deliver the message over and over again, calmly and consistently and clearly. This universal symbol of self-care is actually a symbol of community care, because that one mask requires a community to exist. Self-care won't save you. In fact, if the plane is falling from the sky, all that results is you're well oxygenated when you hit the ground. Self-care is actually a community condition. In the world of public health, we're talking about thinking in systems. We recognize that your individual mental health affects your family. Your family affects your block affects your neighborhood affects your city affects your state, so on and so on. And so we're all ultimately connected. And as we look at this idea of self-care, we have to reevaluate it in the state of community care. I do a lot of surveys, ask a lot of questions. And I showed up at this door to ask questions about health. Single mom, 2 kids, 2 jobs, could barely cover the cost of rent. As I spoke to her, I could hear the desperation in her voice. She said, people are always telling me, I've got to take better care of myself. But when can I do that? Now, she wasn't being sarcastic. She certainly wasn't asking me for a spa recommendation. She was sincere. She didn't have the time to take care of herself. A week later, I showed up at a different door, different neighborhood, completely different environment. If this was aligned to the plane, you'd say the cabin pressure was pretty good. Talk to this gentleman, he says, yeah, folks are always telling me all this self-care stuff. Well, back in my day, we didn't have all this self-care. We just did the right thing and everything worked out fine. And as we continued talking, He shared, though, he hadn't talked to his kids in 2 weeks, didn't know his neighbors. This amazing life he had built, he was living alone. And so while these are two very different individuals, they are actually both unwell. One had no time. One had no one. And both were suffocating. Now, this isn't just about feeling sad or any of those things. This is about the real impact of isolation on health. Loneliness is the equivalent of smoking 15 cigarettes every day. It costs us about $6.7 billion in healthcare because we're spending all of this money buying better masks, but not addressing the problems that are creating the need for the mask to begin with. This health problem, if it was equated to cigarettes, we'd say you can't smoke indoors because we know that your smoking impacts others. When it comes to loneliness, we think of it as an individual shortcoming. We say, well, you're not doing well because you didn't put your mask on the right way. No, loneliness is a public health epidemic, and it's solvable. So what if we told a new story? What if we approached self-care in a new way? I'm from Las Vegas, and yes, I am a wedding officiant as well. And so I often talk to couples about their relationship. And part of the ceremony, one of my favorite parts, is the unity candle. You've got 2 candles lit on each side of a center candle. And I tell the couples, these flames represent you as individuals, your hopes, your dreams, your histories, and your futures. As you light the center candle, you unite as one. And so they put the candles together, and they notice that the flame gets really big. And I say, notice how that flame shines more brightly when you're together. You two shine more brightly together than when you're apart. And then I draw their attention to the initial flames. I say, notice, neither flame is dimmed, but you have a third shining brightly. When we do self-care the right way, we actually engage in selfless service. When we care for others, we actually are caring for ourselves. When we create community conditions that allow others to thrive, we create the community conditions that allow us to thrive. Now, even the flame needs oxygen. Though you can light 1,000 candles from one, if that one is lacking oxygen, it will diminish. So instead of thinking of self-care as being selfish, think of self-care as what you do in order to contribute. Because this mask is important. We can build a system where the mask never has to drop. We can create conditions where every neighborhood can thrive, where each individual has the time for relationships and the mental capacity to engage in them. Caring for yourself and caring for others were never meant to be separate acts. They are, in fact, one and the same. So tonight, when I go home and I watch Aria breathe, I'll remember that I'm not responsible for the conditions that enable her breath alone. It is a community effort that allows her to breathe. She is not only the most precious thing in my world, she is my world. And so my job is to make sure that the world is equipped to take care of her. Thank you.